YouTube Nation. Today, I'm going to be discussing a band that has eluded me my entire YouTube career. I'm going to say it. Pantera. For some reason, of which I cannot explain, for as long as I can remember, people have wanted me to talk about Pantera. And I can't remember when I first responded to it, but I said something along the lines of, no, I don't like this band, and I've never really been into them. Obviously, I knew about them for a long time. They're extremely popular, but I just never got into them. And somehow this morphed into he doesn't like them, he hates them, he'll never review them, and it even became a running joke to ask me, and people thought that they were really bothering me, if I would review Pantera or talk about them at all. And I've even seen memes asking why I don't review Pantera. Here's the deal. Soda. Here's the deal about Pantera. Now, back when I was Maidenslave, and before that, I truly didn't. It's not that I hated them; I just didn't care for them. They, in my eyes, they didn't do anything special. And I guess I can see how people can take that in a negative way, right? And once rumors get started, they just blow up, especially when it involves me on YouTube. My opinions get totally blown out of proportion, and people end up thinking that I hate bands and other people on YouTube. So I don't hate Pantera. In fact, I like Pantera quite a bit. And here's one of the little ironic things, I guess. Before all you guys ran me off of YouTube a couple of years ago, Pantera was going to be the next band that I was going to review after Pink Floyd. I was listening to them. I was even listening to the Cowboys albums. Some people don't include those albums, some people do. In my personal opinion, the only one that I really recognize as Pantera is Power Metal, which is the one right before Cowboys. That came out in 1988, and it also was technically the first one with Phil Anselmo. And I listened throughout the rest of their career. I watched videos on YouTube, which I'll get to. And then I left. You guys chased me off, made me leave. Fast forward about a year, and I start listening to them again. And then I actually really start listening to them, and then I really like them. So I do like Pantera, and that's what this video is about. I'm going to be talking about the band today, in length, what I think about them. So yeah, let me kind of explain, I guess, how I actually decided to even kind of open up to this band. Now, since I am a metal fan and a rock fan, I watch a lot of I watch that metal show. As dumb as that show is, I still watch it. It's kind of like my relationship with wrestling. Even though every time I watch it, I'm like, this is so cheesy. I keep going back for more. I don't know. But I watch that. I watch. There's documentaries on YouTube mainly. Yeah, pretty much just YouTube, I guess. I mean, YouTube's awesome because it's just a library for every band you love that's relevant, really, that of pretty much videoed interviews ranging all the way back from like when they were all MTV up to now, when anybody can give an interview, and you see a lot of interviews with a lot of cool musicians that are completely ruined by stupid young interviewers who have no interest in the band. They didn't do any homework. It's funny, you always see. I mean, it's interesting to see how artists react. Some of them kind of are polite about it. Some of them call people out. I was watching a review. I was watching an interview the other day of Iron Maiden talking about their new album, Book of Souls, and the interviewer not accidentally, but they thought that Yannick was, no, they thought that Adrian Smith was Yannick, and luckily Bruce was right there. He was being interviewed too, and he called the girl out on it. I think Adrian just kind of would have been polite about it, but it's inexcusable if you're going to be doing this kind of a job. You got to you got to know what you're talking about at least. I mean, a lot of these people, that's all you have to do is go to Wikipedia, and you'll know more than they knew about the band. So, anyways, so I was watching. I forgot what it was, but you know, in a lot of these like rock documentaries, they interview big names. A lot of people that you'll see very often is what's his name from Anthrax? Scott Ian, I believe. That guy, since Anthrax sucks and they're not very active, he does pretty much every documentary for any kind of money he'll take, because Anthrax is terrible and they need money. And but on a few of them, actually, they get good people like Phil Anselmo. And I don't know what it was, but something kind of intrigued me about this guy. He just seemed very messed up, but very genuine and nice. Like he was kind of like a lost soul. And for some reason that connected with me. So I did what anybody in this century does, and I just YouTubed him. I YouTubed Phil Anselmo, and there's a bunch of interviews. And then I pretty much came to find out that he's a pretty infamous interviewee. You kind of don't know what he's going to say, because he's very raw and he's very honest. And oh my goodness, I watched. There's one interview on there. I'm pretty sure some of you have seen it. Just in case, though, I will link it down in the description because I think it's a good watch. An interview that he did at a university, I believe in New Orleans, which is where he's from. And this was maybe sometime in the mid-2000s after he got clean. So he's up there sitting on a stage with this poor lady who had to kind of moderate it, and I say poor like in a polite way, because when Phil is into an interview and he's into a crowd, he will talk forever. He'll just go on random tangents. You ask him one question, you think he's gonna talk about one subject, and then 20 or 30 minutes later, he's like, what was the question again, after he's talked about a bunch of stuff. So that's one of the reasons why I like him in interviews. And another reason is it's like the right mix of, you're kind of like uncomfortable. He makes you a little bit uncomfortable because you don't know what he's going to say, and you don't know how the moderator or the interviewer is going to react or try to, play it off. But at the same time, it's like you want to know. He's just one of those people that it's so interesting that you just want to know really what he's talking about, what his opinions are, let alone what his journey has been like. And in this interview, which I have linked down below, it's a really long interview. I think it's around an hour. And I found myself watching it at a point in my life in which I was struggling with some things, and I felt a little bit lost, and a little bit kind of like I was scum. I kind of became the very thing that I ran away from whenever I left YouTube, And I felt it. I felt like I would go out and I would just see people looking at me, and who knows what they were thinking. They were probably just thinking nothing, but I was thinking that they were thinking, look at this scumbag. Look at this lowlife, this loser. Get out of here. What are you doing here? And, it was kind of like destiny getting into this interview, because he pretty much talked about in this interview his struggles. And here's the thing. I don't think that he the interview. I think the interview was gonna be ultimately about drug addiction, because it was for college kids. So that also was pretty cool. Younger kids looking up to somebody who's actually kind of in their age range, instead of some old man up on a TED stage. But ultimately he was going to end up talking about his addiction to heroin. And of course the lady kind of opened up with some, I think some things about Pantera and his success and this and that, and she kind of just got straight to it, because she asked a dumb question like, when did drugs come into play? And he was just like, drugs, what are we talking about? Are we talking about booze? Are we talking about, speed? Are we talking about meth? Are we talking about, lewds? Are we talking about, or you just want to jump straight to heroin? You just want to talk about heroin already? And, she was just like, I don't know. And he pretty much had to take it over. And he was like, listen up, Jack. And he brings you in, because he gets quiet. He's like, I'm gonna tell you guys some advice. And then he's thinking about how he's going to deliver it to you, because he's the kind of person that he's giving us tokens of information that we will probably hold on for the rest of our lives. So when he tells us stuff, he kind of has to, kind of, I guess, find a witty way of saying it, and he does. He does a great job. So he talks about heroin and his addiction to it, and kind of how it happened. Pretty much, he was going hard, he was going fast. Pantera, rocking hard, biggest band in the world, success. And he got, an injury out on tour. And He did the painkiller thing, he did the booze thing, the liquor thing, and none of it worked anymore. And then he just turned over to the devil, and he did heroin, and he talked about his experience doing heroin. And what it did, and how much it isolated him, and how much it made him feel like scum, and like nobody liked him. And then guess what ended up happening? Everybody saw right through him. They all knew he was on heroin. And he got isolated. I mean, it's not like the band wanted him to turn into a selfish jerk who was just trying to get high all the time. They probably would have wanted, keep going on. But he thought he had the devil by the horns, but the monkey on his back got too big. And ultimately it pretty much caused the destruction of, probably the greatest heavy metal band of all time. And even after that, he was still using, because, just because he's done doesn't mean that he's done. Now he's just, a heroin, addict with a bunch of money. And a bunch of time now. He's not even on the road doing anything. So he talked about his experience with his last experience doing heroin, and it was pretty traumatic. It's what I guess a lot of addicts call low, hitting a bottom, where he pretty much gave one of his good best friends from like high school, I believe, heroin. He shot him up, and the guy was pretty much overdosed. And Phil had to stay with him all night, making sure that he was going to be okay. And it scared him into stopping. And it was just encouraging to see that there's kind of a light at the end, at the end of the tunnel. And he wrote poetry, and I also felt comfortable in the fact that he, he's not new and hip with a lot of trends and technology, and just a very simple guy. And that's it. And when I'm watching this interview at the time, I'm just like, there's somebody out there who's really successful, really cool. He's a cool guy. People want to hang out with him. He has friends. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, hey, I wasn't in Pantera, but I was, I'm a cool guy. And he helped me out a lot. And and then I started, I watched that whole thing. Helped me out a lot. It helped me out a lot. And, I would keep watching it. And then, of course, I eventually got to his other interviews. I got to newer ones, because that one was actually kind of old. It's just really famous, so it came up first. It always comes up first. And then I got newer ones where he's in Down, and also he was on That Metal Show, I believe, a few times. So that was really cool to see. Sorry, I'm really bloated right now. I just had Burger King, so I feel kind of terrible already. I watched some of his newer interviews, and the first thing I noticed on some of the new ones was he had a huge beard. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. And he has one of those beards that's like all full right here, which is the main part of a beard that you want to be full anyways. And it just like, it wasn't even like groomed, because he's Bill, who gives a shit. It was like all out. And the funniest thing was he had the tiny little mustache, and it doesn't connect to his beard. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who think, dang, dude, you have a big beard. That's disgusting. Shave it and get a job, go to the gym. And then there's some of you out there that's saying, dude, you have a big beard. That's awesome. I wish I can grow one. But honestly, I do like it. And I want it to get longer. But there is one thing that I'm kind of like, I don't like. And that's the fact that I don't really grow hair right here. Most people don't notice. Except for beardsmen. I wish it was all dark under my lip. All the way down, all dark. But at least my mustache connects to it. Because a lot of people, their mustache doesn't connect to their beard. So, you know, get what the good Lord gave you. And some people actually do like this. They don't really notice it at all. But I'm pretty happy with it. I think it looks good. But Phil is such a badass, though, that, you know, he had a thin little mustache with a huge beard. He's still, you know, he's still fucking Phil Anselmo, so that was awesome. And he still, you know, he still has problems with a lot of modern music today, and I agree with him. You know, you watch some of these interviews, you know, some of the critiques that he says about some of these bands and what they're doing out there. Now they're fucking up. Now things are different these days, and you can't help but to agree, even if you don't agree, because he's so appealing. I mean, there's just something about him. See, now I'm looking at my beard. I like how girls either love it or they hate it. Girls either love beards or they hate beards. Well, I'd rather be loved than be kind of liked with no beard. You get what I'm saying? Anyways, back to Pantera. So yeah, pretty much, you know, this guy was so intriguing that, you know, I thought to myself, you know, I should give a second look, you know, a second listen to their music, you know, and then I did, and because I liked this guy so much, you know, I listened to them, and I was just like, this band has got to be the greatest heavy metal band of all time for two reasons. Two simple reasons. Number one, Dimebag Darrell. Yeah, Dimebag Darrell is the greatest heavy metal guitarist of all time. And number two is those badass interviews that Phil gives on YouTube. You know? So, if you guys haven't checked out those interviews, I'm gonna link a few of those interviews down there in the bottom. And so yeah, Pantera, fucking badass shit. I like them. I hate them. This is the part of my videos that Brody, aka Downfall, just loves. I like his videos. I like it.